Hello again, my friends. As you remember, at the end of part 10, Raven was trapped in a crystal cave. So, we begin part 11 with Brave One on the outside of that crystal cave. Brave One used a large tree trunk to wedge the rock until it fell on the opening of the cave. "There," he said triumphantly. "Now you will know what it feels like to be left behind, while someone steals your guards and becomes leader in a village. I am the one who should be leader," he proclaimed. As he walked back to the campsite in the mountains, where Raven's people were, he wondered how he was going to get the guards to follow him. Should he tell them the story how Raven fell off a cliff and died? Maybe she jumped off the cliff after the sacred feathers. No, none of that was believable. He would have to think of something else. Meanwhile, back in Keymyu's community, Laughing Wolf helped Hummingbird off the cliff after he made sure the enemy had left and the people were safe in their village. "How are we going to do this?" asked Wolf. "The fact that you are still alive will shock many. And I heard the cries of a new baby. I think Moonbeam had a baby." "What if you go, Wolf, and tell them? They do not think that you are dead, just missing." "Then come and get me when the time is right," suggested Hummingbird. Wolf agreed and returned to the village, telling Sunwalker first. Sunwalker jumped up and down like a child who had just won a prize. Then Sunwalker told Moonbeam and Hawk and Keymyu. Soon the rest of the village learned that Hummingbird was alive. They could not wait to hear her story. "What about CrowWolf?" Sunwalker asked. "He has been gone a long time. Has anyone seen him?" And no one knew where he was. Laughing Wolf carefully escorted Hummingbird back to the village. As the community cheered and smiled with delight, Sunwalker hugged her long and hard, and Keymyu's heart skipped a beat when she learned that Hummingbird had exchanged the sacred feathers with CrowWolf's hawk feathers. "Then CrowWolf has the sacred feathers?" Keymyu asked. "Yes," responded Hummingbird, "but I keep sensing that he's not coming back. It feels as though the feathers are leading him north." "Then I must follow him," said Sunwalker. "Me too," said Hummingbird and Keymyu at the same time. "And I will go also," said Hawk, but Moonbeam pulled his arm, and he looked down at her, holding their baby in her arms. "Wait a minute," protested Sunwalker. "Who will take care of the community? We cannot leave them here without a leader." "I will stay," volunteered Hawk. "It will be difficult for Moonbeam to travel right now, and you have carefully taught me all your skills, Sunwalker." "You will be a good leader, Hawk. And Moonbeam is a wise counselor for the women. But I would suggest that you move the community into a deeper part of the jungle, in case Raven or Feathered Trumpet try to find us again. Their craving for power and control would hurt all the good we have done and developed within our people." "I agree," said Hawk, and Moonbeam smiled up at him. "Will we ever see you again?" Moonbeam asked Hummingbird. Hummingbird responded, "I do not know, my good and loyal sister. I felt so terrible when I heard you sobbing at the edge of the cliff, but your genuine sorrow was needed to convince Raven that the feathers and I were gone." "You always were good at keeping secrets," her sister smirked. "We should give you an award for your performance," and everyone laughed. "Why did you have Moonbeam give us the crow feathers?" asked Keymyu. "There were several reasons," Hummingbird began. "I hoped you would remember how I told you That sacred one told me to use the feathers and the shells whenever I needed help. Secondly, and forgive me for this, I was hoping that you would see the crow feathers as my saying goodbye before I died. Well, it worked, frowned Moonbeam. I was hoping that was not the message. I thought that too, admitted Keymyu. You sure had us convinced that you went over that cliff in a blaze of fire. Everyone agreed, and they also were glad that it was not true. Meanwhile, back in Raven's community, Gentle Breeze noticed that Raven had dropped her colorful medicine feathers slightly outside their campsite on the path toward the cave. Oh no, she thought, Raven will need these. So she asked one of the guards who had traveled with them to the cave to bring Raven her feathers. He agreed and soon was on his way. When he found that the cave was sealed with a large boulder, he immediately knew that something was wrong. It took many attempts before he was able to move the boulder far enough that he could wedge his way inside. A light was barely flickering down one of the passageways. He followed it until he saw Raven slumped over with her torch nearby. Immediately he carried her to the fresh air outside the cave. Raven, Raven, he called as he shook her, and then made her walk with him, with her arm swung over his shoulder. She opened her eyes, and the grogginess soon began to wear off. How did you find me? She asked. The guard told her about Gentle Breeze noticing that she had dropped the colorful medicine feathers. The feathers! Raven grabbed them and held them to her heart. You must be the feathers in my vision because you saved my life. Tears clouded her eyes, and the guard looked away to allow her to collect herself. Who could have done this? He asked. It must have been someone who is awfully strong. Someone who wanted me dead, Raven reasoned, and remembered the anxious feelings of danger she was having right before she asked the community to go to the mountains. No one in our village would have done this, Raven, the guard assured her. We all respect you and prefer your considerate way of leading over Feathered. Do you think Feathered Trumpet is alive and somehow found us? Raven had been wondering the same thing. If so, our village is in danger. You know his ruthless way of punishing people and taking power. We need to get back there as fast as we can. With that, they both ran back to the campsite. Back at Raven's community, Feathered Trumpet had kidnapped 3 women. He took one at a time when no one was around to see him. He captured Gentle Breeze first because he had seen her with Raven and did not want this old woman to challenge his leadership. Then he took a wife of one of the guards and a daughter from another guard. 3 people to trade for power, he said to himself. Maybe I will keep the young girl and trade the other 2 back. The girl would make a fine mate for me. These people are weak. They would do anything to save someone's life, especially after I tell them that Raven's never coming back. That will weaken their spirit, he decided. Trumpet had tied the 3 women to a tree and placed dry grass and branches around the base so that he could light a fire quickly if he did not get what he wanted. Now I will sit and wait with my torch until people come looking for their missing women. Raven and the guard caught sight of Feathered Trumpet as he was lighting his torch. They knew that he was ruthless enough to burn the women if he did not get what he wanted, or if the 2 of them attempted to free the captives. I need time to think how we can free them, Raven said, and motioned for the guard to follow her. Suddenly, she realized that feeding Trumpet's ego would create him seeing only what he wanted to see. She found one of Gentle Breeze's friends and asked her to make a grouping of feathers that looked just like the colorful medicine feathers. She then had a guard dig a circular pit deep enough for him to sit in. Next, she laid some branches over the pit and covered the opening with a blanket. 3 women sat at the corners of the blanket with items to sew or work on. This would make the blanket appear as though it was on solid ground. At the 4th corner of the blanket, Raven piled a stack of twigs. The guard in the pit would be able to stick his hand up and start a fire in those twigs at just the right moment. Raven then gathered the people and told them how they needed to participate to make it believable. Finally, she was ready and sent one of the guards to give Feathered Trumpet a message. She instructed the guard to make sure Feathered Trumpet approached her area in a specific direction so that the pit where the other guard was hiding would be hidden behind a pile of twigs. The message to Trumpet was, "We are ready to exchange something more powerful than the sacred feathers for the 3 women. You will have to bring the women to Raven's campsite in order to see a demonstration of this power. Having these 2 objects will make you the most powerful person in this new land." Raven added that if he hesitates or says no, then tell him that these 2 objects were powerful enough to help me escape from the cave. Then tell him I'm willing to leave the village and let him be leader, but I must see the 3 women back with their families before I leave. Feathered Trumpet did not like the idea of taking the 3 women away from the fire area he had prepared. However, when the messenger added that the objects help Raven escape from the cave, he was intrigued. Finally, when he heard that Raven would leave the village once she knew that the 3 women were back with their families, he decided to take a chance and listen to her proposal. After she leaves, he thought, I can take any woman I want, so I win no matter what. Trumpet carefully untied the women from the tree, but tied them to each other so they could barely walk. Then Raven's guard showed Trumpet the path he and the women needed to take. Trumpet had been watching the village for a long time and had counted the men and women in it. So when he made sure that all the village was in front of him and no one could ambush him from the rear, he moved the women close enough to listen to Raven's proposal. With a burning torch in one hand and his large knife in the other, Trumpet was ready to create as much destruction as necessary if he didn't get what he wanted. Raven held up the new colored medicine feathers with great reverence. These feathers are more powerful than the sacred feathers, and I will give you a demonstration, she began. She held up a large crystal stone in her other hand and waved the feathers over the stone, mouthing some words very softly. Now, she said, look at how the energy of the feathers create colors through the sacred stone. She held the crystal in such a way that the reflected light created a rainbow of colors on the white sand ground. Oh, said the village people, well rehearsed in what to do. Trumpet thought for a moment and then said, so how will colors on the ground make me the most powerful leader in this new land? Raven was waiting for just this moment. Because the stones now have the power to create fire, she shouted with great majesty and pointed the crystal toward the pile of twigs next to the pit, where the guard ignited them on fire. Ah, cried the people of the village, and the women on the blanket bowed up and down toward the fire as though the Creator had started it. Then all the people bowed at Raven, chanting, "Raven, Raven, Raven." Chills went up Feathered Trumpet's arms at all this excitement and reverence he saw in the crowd. Would people bow to me like that if I showed such power with these sacred objects? He wondered, and asked Raven, "So you will give me the medicine feathers and the stone if I give you these 3 women? And you will leave the village, Raven, and let me be leader?" He was wondering why she would surrender her village. "When I see the 3 women back with their families, and you promise that you will be a kind leader, then I will give them to you. But I must also have one last evening with my people to say goodbye, and tomorrow morning I will share the secret words that are needed to say to the feathers and the stone to make them powerful enough to create fire." "Tell me the words now," Trumpet demanded. "No," Raven said defiantly. "Then we will have nothing to bargain with. I need to see that you treat my people with respect tonight, before I share the final part of the exchange in the morning. Release the 3 women now, and I will hand over the feathers and stone at the same time." Trumpet eyed her suspiciously. "We will do the exchange at the same time," he agreed. As he freed the women and they ran back to their loved ones, Raven handed him the feathers and stone. They seemed like just an ordinary stone and feathers to him. He tried waving the feathers over the stone and then pointing the stone at something to see if it would burn. "The secret words will make them come alive," repeated Raven as she watched his actions. Before Trumpet could protest any further, the people began bowing at Trumpet and chanting, "Great one, great one, great one." Trumpet liked the sound of that. This would be his new name, he decided. "These people already see you as their leader since you possess the feathers and stone," commented Raven to boost his ego even further. Feathered Trumpet never had this much attention in his old village. No wonder Raven has these people in the palm of her hand, he decided. She has these powerful feathers and stone to keep the people in line. I wonder if I point the stone at a person, if it would catch them on fire. The women then led him to an area with all sorts of food and drink. The guards saluted him with their drink and hugged their women. "Which one of these women will I choose?" thought Feathered Trumpet as he eyed each one greedily. Some boys were playing behind Trumpet, so he could hear their words while he ate. One of them said, "I know where Raven got that sacred stone." And Trumpet strained to hear what they said. "There is a cave not far from here. I saw Raven go into it, and when she came out, she had that stone." The boy continued, "I bet there are other stones just like that in the cave. I'll take you guys to it in the morning." Trumpet wondered, a cave? Could it be that the cave where I trapped Raven was the secret place where she found the sacred stone? Could there be more there? Of course there are, he finally realized. That is why it's so easy to take over this village. Raven knows that she can go to the cave and get more stones. I'm going to have to find a way to seal that cave up again and take all the stones out of it for myself. Imagine how powerful I would be if I were the only one who had access to the stones. I could trade them for whatever I wanted. Trumpet did not realize that he was laughing out loud, and everyone was looking at him. "Oh, this drink is good," he explained. "I'll be right back." Casually, he got up from the feast, taking his sword and torch, and walked off toward the woods as though he were going to relieve himself. Then Trumpet crossed over the path which led to the cave. Perhaps the real reason why Raven wanted to extend an extra night is so that she could disappear with all the stones, and I would never have the words needed to bring power to my stone. I need to see what is in that cave, he decided, and was glad he had brought his torch. Raven and the 3 guards watched him leave. They were hoping that the boy's words would pique Trumpet's curiosity. As they began to follow Trumpet, the wind suddenly picked up. With each step, the wind got stronger and stronger. Black clouds began to swirl in the distance. "I think we need to go back and have our people bring things to the cave on the other side of the mountain," Raven yelled to her guards through the roaring wind. "Forget about Trumpet. If he keeps heading in that direction, he will head right into those dark, swirling clouds. Helping the people is more important right now." The guards agreed, and they turned back toward the campsite. The people were already packing their things and heading to the cave for cover. Trumpet pushed his way against the wind. Nothing was going to keep him from becoming the most powerful person in this land. "A sacred rock that creates fire and can even move large boulders," he gloated. "What else can it do?" he wondered. It seemed like forever before Trumpet got to the cave. He waited until he was inside before he lit his torch. The winds roared and swirled outside the cave as Trumpet moved toward the main passage in an area that was filled with glimmering rocks. He did not care what the wind was doing. The sight of all these crystals was more than he expected. He imagined all the possessions he would trade for these valuable stones. As he chipped away to collect them, he did not notice the tumbling and twirling and crashing that was going on outside. As the great wind ripped away the trees by their roots, the ground gave way above the entrance of the cave. Dirt, rocks, and branches began to pile up in front of the cave. Soon there was a mound of rubble so high at the cave entrance that it was totally sealed. Trumpet became weary after a while from all this work loosening the rocks. He yawned and rubbed his eyes. "Oh, perhaps I need a rest for a while and then continue," he decided, and fell asleep. As the air thinned in the cave, the torch went out. Feathered Trumpet's dreams took him through his whole life. He felt all the pain he had caused others. He saw how his selfishness turned people away from him. His final thought was, "What I gave caused what I received." Back to Keymyu's community. Keymyu and Moonbeam ran to the garden after the storm with high winds ended. "The garden is safe," laughed Keymyu, as she looked down at the large pit which Sunwalker had dug. "So it is," agreed Moonbeam. Keymyu said, "I will pick some things for my journey north with Sunwalker and Hummingbird. Moonbeam, we will miss you greatly, but we know you will continue to share the sacred ways." Keymyu hugged her dear friend. She did not want to tell her how she'd been having feelings that the storms would become worse. She sensed floods and fire ravaging the land. Then suddenly she remembered something that would be helpful to Moonbeam. "You know, Moonbeam, I tell you this in case you need to use it. If the people need to find a place of refuge, listen for a whistling sound in the wind, and then follow that sound to a place where there's a hole in a rock through which the wind is whistling. Look below the rock with a hole in it, and there will be a cave where you will be safe." Moonbeam understood that Keymyu was telling her something very important because she felt chills on her arms. She had also sensed that the recent storms were just the beginning of some major changes. She knew that living the sacred way with a peaceful mind and kindness in one's heart helped one remain center so that they knew what to do as needed. "Pass on the sacred ways to as many people as you meet," Keymyu added, "and I will do the same. A blessing from the sacred feathers will go to everyone who passes on the information about the sacred ways to others. People of the earth must return to living in harmony with the earth if they are to survive. Self-centered thoughts keep one in a self-destructive realm of me. Seeing how every thought, word, and action affects the balance of everything around us is a sign that one understands the wisdom of we, or, in other words, all is interconnected. We need each other. We balance each other. We are all a part of the creation. As CrowWolf often said, the Creator does not make mistakes. It is our interpretation of what is happening which may be mistaken. All extremes eventually balance themselves, and Mother Earth may bring about a balance which will bring humans back to harmony with the Earth. Moonbeam smiled and added, "As we listen within, we will know what to do." So, what has been happening with CrowWolf? CrowWolf awoke with thoughts of his mother clearly in his mind. "It feels like you are well, Mother. I want to return to our village, but the crow, wolf, and feathers are urging me to go north. Feel my love for you and Father. I need to follow my destiny." Thus CrowWolf continued heading north, following the crow and wolf. He sensed that his family might be following him. His dream last night showed him a new group of people that he would meet and join and share the sacred feathers with. He sensed that he would be eating less meat to keep his energy and consciousness higher, and thus more open to receiving information as needed. The new land where he was going needed the energy of the feathers for all that was going on there. The feathers would draw those who would work together to help humanity grow in light and return to the sacred ways of honoring Mother Earth and each other as a part of the Creator's creation. "What you give is what you receive," he heard in his mind, and it felt as though the words were coming from the feathers. CrowWolf realized that whoever had come in contact with the sacred feathers experienced that lesson. If they gave out disharmony, they received disharmony. If they gave out peace, they experienced peace. If they helped each other grow in light, they also grew in light and became lighter in their heart and soul. So, my dear friends, this is not only the end of part 11, but also the end of our story together, the story from Mu. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if your heart tells you to be in touch with me, please do so, because by the response of the people who have watched this story, I'm going to set up a YouTube channel where people who are helping others and the world grow in light can share what they're doing to help bring us all back to more respect and kindness with each other. The email I will be using for that account is lemuriamu8@gmail.com. And as always, thank you for those who are sharing this video series with others. Know that you're in my prayers. I send you love and blessings. Peace. Namaste.